40,000 plus rupees phones, they're doing well. Belly of the market is not doing very well. First half of last year was not great, which generally doesn't happen. 6 crore phone in a year being sold via online is not a small thing.
Indian PC market declined by 6.6% year on year.
One of the important pieces is AI PCs. Now it's much talked about. Possibly consumers are waiting with a bated breath for that. And our penetration of laptops is not great. Not more than 15 crore laptops in India.
Hey guys, welcome to our first episode of the 91 Mobiles and IDC podcast called Tech Dialogues, where we are not just going to discuss what's happening in the world of tech, but actually back it up by the numbers that IDC produces, which is to tell you how brands are performing in the market. And I have, of course, with me Navkendar from IDC joining me. Thank you so much, Navkendar, for doing this with us.
Thank you, Sumit. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, so I'm just going to give our viewers and listeners a rundown for the first episode. So IDC has some very interesting data of the past quarter and the past year when it comes to smartphones, laptops. And speaking about laptops, we at 91 Mobiles have our survey, and there's a lot of similarity I noticed in at least the positioning of brands that we've had. And we're going to end on a very interesting note in a category that's very close to my heart, which is televisions and smart televisions, to be precise. So kicking it off with our big topic is smartphones. The IDC report says that the Indian smartphone market grew just 1% year on year. So can you elaborate what this means? I mean, just simplify it for the people that are not very business savvy. What do you mean by year on year, and what are the numbers you can put to this?
The general perception of the market is India is about 1.4 billion people. Apple is doing well. Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra does well. So market is doing well. So, but the reality is slightly more nuanced than that. So if we peel the layers, below the layers, what we see is that as we at IDC like to compare the belly of the market, we compare it with the bike market, right? Motorcycle market, which we have seen is not doing very well.
Okay.
And the cars and the luxury car market is doing well. So here as well, we've seen that the premium end of the market or the mid-premium is doing well, which is equivalent to the cars. So something like 40,000 plus rupees phones, they're doing well, which includes Apple's and OnePlus and Samsung S series and so on and so forth. But the belly of the market is less than 30,000 is still about 3/4 of the market, 75% in India. That is not doing so well. And all this growth, also 1% growth, that's also coming because the premium end of the market, including Apple and Samsung, some of those models did really well. Otherwise, we would have seen probably a degrowth in the market yet again from 2021 to 22. Also, we are coming from a high of pandemic. 2020 was a so to say freak year. One quarter was about 53 million, 5.3 crore phones. July, August, September of 2020, if I'm not wrong. And we're coming from 155, 156, touching almost 160. But now we are seeing that the organic growth of the market is not happening. And what I mean by that is, first two smartphone users are not coming in as much quantity as we would like.
Okay.
We still are at about 650 million, 640 million smartphone users. There were 64, 65 crore on a population of 140 crores. That's less than 50% smartphone penetration in 2024. Frankly, that's big enough for most services and brands, but it's not good enough for a market like India, where every digital service, including government and private, are being envisaged on smartphone use, right? So everything is digital. So I think those are the few nuanced realities of the market, and it's a challenge to grow the market right now. All the brands are feeling it.
So, I mean, if we can just put what you said into a little bit of economic terms, right? India is growing at a GDP of about 8.6% as per the latest numbers. Having said that, the savings to consumption ratio is the lowest it has ever been. It's lowest of the past 50 years. So people are clearly spending more money and saving less money, which in the typical upper middle class kind of family thing is, I'll buy an iPhone this time, I'll buy the better OnePlus this time. But having said that, we're also at an all-time high of youth which is unemployed. So I guess from that perspective, or the lower sector of economy where they are moving towards a smartphone, they're not seeing that kind of purchasing power, if one can say so. Would this correlate to the numbers that you guys are seeing as well?
Yes. Also, below this particular explanation is also that it's a reality that it's a K-shaped recovery after the pandemic, what we have seen.
Yeah.
It's an important number, GDP number is important, but we have to see that how many people are contributing to this growth, right?
Yeah.
So belly of the market and belly of the consumers are still not able to contribute, as you said, unemployment and other stuff. And most of the urban and the semi-urban audience, buying a phone is not a choice now.
Yeah.
For about half of the population, less than half of the population.
I mean, it has gone from roti kapda makan to roti kapda makan internet and
Yeah.
smartphone now.
Makan also people buy later.
Yeah.
They have the phones, before that. So that's not a choice. But the thing which is happening is majority of the population who buy a phone at about 10, 15, 20,000 rupees, they're keeping it a little longer.
Yeah.
Because there is income stress, there's inflationary stress, the prices are not coming down. So I think that's hurting. And the share of the wallet which is going to devices around 2020 and 21, that has moved away from that. 2021-22 moved to travel, eating out. Now it's going to essentials because essentials are slightly under stress and they're getting expensive.
But like you said, I mean, that's a very interesting point you raised where the 40,000 rupee plus market is the one that saw the growth, and that's also the places, price point where brands can also have a better margin to keep. So, I mean, like even Xiaomi, for example, their new Xiaomi 14 is, being branded as a premium product. It is coming from, a lens with Leica for great camera to compete with the Samsungs and the Vivos and the iPhones of the world. But Xiaomi still has the Redmi brand, which resonates with, the younger audience and stuff. So, do you see a shift of a lot of brands from the Tecnos and the Lavas of the world also trying to get a share of this premium spot?
They would love to. They would love to. And this is not a new thing, frankly. And Xiaomi has been trying since Mi 11, Mi 12 and other stuff also, right? With mixed success, I would say, if you're being kind. But the whole point is above almost $600, it's largely a two-horse race, what we have seen. Samsung and Apple.
Yeah.
And depending on the launch quarters, we see the Xiaomi. In February, you see launch of Galaxy.
Yeah.
So by that time, it's a second or a third quarter for the iPhone launch because iPhone happens in September. So Samsung Galaxy S series does well for Q1, Q2 of calendar year.
Yeah.
Then in Q3 ending, we see Apple, iPhone launch. Q4 is a festival season in India. Everybody buys phones. They delay the purchases to buy at that time. So everybody does well, and Apple drops the prices there's a price correction of the N-1, N-2 models.
Yeah.
They do well. All the other brands have tried. They will keep on trying because they would love to be on this, wagon of that premium products are in focus.
Yeah.
But I would say it's a slightly, I will not say misaligned with what they want to do. But they would position that we can do this Leica, we can do all this great imaging and everything. But their large business will still come from belly of the market, which is less than 40,000. They would still rely on that and survive on those volumes coming in.
You raised a very interesting point, which was one of my next questions is, according to your report, it said that the second half of the year grew by 11% year on year in the second half of 2023, compensating for a sharp 10% decline in the first half. So could this be because of the case, like you said, festive happens in the second half of the year, you have the Amazon Great Indian Sales and the Flipkart sales and all happening?
Yes and no. I mean, festives, we always have festivals starting from southern part of India and then West Bengal when Durga Puja happens, and then culminates in Diwali, right?
Yeah.
That can happen end October to mid-November. Like last time was mid-November. We do not have Christmas and anything around that. Black Fridays and Cyber Mondays and everything. We don't have that. So it has always been the case that the second half is always bigger for both sell-in, which is the shipment, and the sell-outs. But here we pointed out that the first half of last year was not great. That's a minus 10% degrowth, which generally doesn't happen. Okay. So if there was no stocking in the last 4-5 months from September to December, we would have probably seen mid-single digit degrowth in the market. Yeah. So brands understood that. They wanted, everybody now tries to crowd their launches and everything and marketing initiatives around those 3-4 months of September to November. Yeah. Because they get the volume. And this is not limited only to this. This is limited to, this extends to your durables, white goods, and your TVs and your autos, bikes and everything. But if this would not have happened, and That's what we're trying to point out, that last year has not been too great, apart from those 3-4 months in the second half of the year.
But do you see a shift in 2024, especially like in a month of March, for example, when we're recording this, we've seen phones like the Nothing Phone 2A and a lot of, especially MediaTek dominated. I think about 10 odd phones in March alone have launched, which are MediaTek powered, and then there are a few Qualcomm also powered that have launched. So is this an outlier month from the perspective of launches, or is something happening, something's changing?
See, launches generally do not drive the market. It's not that a launch will happen and suddenly the volumes will go up for a month. For that brand, probably might happen.
Yeah. I mean, nothing says that day one you buy it, you get it for 19,999, the phone 2, and then it goes up to 23,000.
Those are topical discounts. They keep on happening. Most of the companies do that at launches. I would not say that a launch, and certainly a brand like Nothing, which is small, they want to enter the mass market, which is absolutely fair. That's where the volumes will come in, and intent is very clear. I would not say that this will drive the volumes in March or anything else.
Okay.
In India is a very different market in the sense that we are very cyclical.
Yeah.
Apart from freak years like 2020, when you have a lockdown for 45 days, and suddenly in June, July, everything gets sold in the market, right? The stock is zero because everybody suddenly goes out and wants to buy, and they realize that the phone is the most important thing. Apart from those outliers, those are the outliers. Otherwise, we're a very cyclical market. This is not a back-to-school thing. It's not that schools are opening, colleges are opening in May or June, the people buy laptops. In laptops, it happens. It doesn't happen in phones.
So, the next part of the topic that I want to discuss is the ASP of the phones and how you guys have collated data on that. But for those that are unaware, can you elaborate on what you mean by ASPs, the average selling price, and how is that kind of calculated? Is it like a IDC formula or is it just plain maths?
No, it's a plain maths. Average selling price is what it means. It's average selling price. It's about the total value you have. I mean, all the units into their
price divided by the volume.
Price divided by the volume. So it's as simple as that.
Yeah.
Only thing which we at IDC do is, because we cover about 100 plus countries, this doesn't include the taxes. So in India, this doesn't include 18% GST.
Yeah.
So if it's 225 or 260 plus 18%, that's the market operating price. But otherwise, there's no stats to it. It's just normal division by.
Yeah. So, I mean, the ASP, which is the average selling price, hit a record of USD $225, which is 14% year on year in 2023. That's almost 20,000 rupees, give or take, if you convert it, right?
Plus taxes.
Yeah, plus taxes.
So that's about 27,000.
Yeah, so about the 25 to 30,000 rupee price point, which kind of hits with us also, because the 20 to 30,000 rupee price point, even on our website, is the most searched, like the best phones under 20,000, best phones 25, 20, 30,000 rupees. So, and we've also seen year on year that smartphones which earlier cost 18, 19,000 today cost 21, 22,000, keeping inflation and, tech into. So how do you see this price point? Is this the sweet spot, again, considering that there was no growth in this price point space? So how do you analyze that, and where do you see this going forward?
So the definition of sweet spot is, depends on which side of the table you sit on, right?
Yeah.
If you want to find the volumes, this is not a sweet spot. We are not getting, the growth is not happening. So it's difficult to pinpoint that maybe 13,000 rupees would be a sweet spot where we get 15% growth. We don't know.
Yeah.
We have seen that in the past. But this increase in ASP, and if you read through a text of a press release, it says that this is the third year of
growth. Yeah.
Continuous growth. Which again reflects back to the point that everything is getting expensive. Consumers have more or less made peace with the fact that what they used to buy at 15,000 3 years back is at 21, 22,000 now.
Yeah.
Which again goes to the fact that they're keeping it a little longer or waiting for the festive season, right? Now, if you ask us that will it go down, we don't see any reason to go down. Except if something like this happens, there are 100 million phones sold, less than 10,000, which are 5G. Because 5G is the only lever which is remaining now. Out of 65 crore, about 50 crore are still 4G phone users.
Yeah.
They at some point of time need to shift to a 5G phone. But that is being limited by, I'll not say high price points. All the brands and the industry is trying, but there's still some gap there where you can shift all of them. That will happen, combined with the inflationary stress and the longer replacement cycles. So this will not go down, but this is an interesting matter. And which is why we also mentioned that this growth in the average selling price is restricting the growth of the overall market, right? And the volume growth. If this would have been less than 20,000 or 15, 16,000, if that would have been, we might have seen about 10% growth. That might have happened. Because the prices are going up, people are holding on to the devices longer or going to the second-hand market, which is another pillar which nobody is paying much attention, because, to be fair to everyone, it's an unorganized market.
Yeah, there's also the refurbished market.
Refurbished, it's totally unorganized. About 3/4 of that is unorganized. You just take the phone, give it to your shopkeeper, neighborhood shopkeeper. He gives a value and you like it, and you give the phone.
Yeah, I mean, you brought up an interesting thing, because recently when we were at MWC, I had a chat with Sunil from Lava, right? And he was talking about how he wants the Indian brand to kind of, persist in a flurry of where most of the budget brands are dominated by a lot of Chinese players, right? On the other hand, we had the head of Tecno, Arijit, who was telling me that, we are also going to try to push 5G at an affordable price point, but that's going to be difficult because we're looking at native markets, unlike a Xiaomi, where they could bring the same device in multiple countries, which gives them the volumes game, right? So that the per unit cost comes down. So it's very interesting to see that everyone's trying to push 5G, but the hurdles for each brand or the market they're catering to is very, very unique. It's more global than local, because these handsets are all over the place. Speaking of being local, again, India is a market where online and offline now have a much more stronger competition. It's not like a few years ago where you said, Amazon pe 15,000 ka mil raha, and the shopkeeper's like, I can't match it. And your data says that the offline channels performed slightly better than online. So can you elaborate on how this happened?
So one, because the first half of the year anyway, the growth did not happen. So that means both online and offline did not grow at that time. In the second half of the year, while we get Big Billion Day and Great Indian Shopping Festival, Amazon and everything, many people have realized now that the price parity is there.
Yeah.
Which you mentioned, about 3 years back, it used to be things are not available at the same price, and they used to haggle with the offline shopkeeper. And then they used to complain to their association, and the association used to complain to the brands that the price parity of the same model should be there. You can't be selling, at a discount. So most of the, many consumers have, we get early signs that many consumers have realized that price parity can be there.
Yeah.
And in the offline also, either the shopkeeper or the brand, they also try from their end to do that. And secondly, importantly, to find more avenues of growth, the brands are spreading into the smaller markets now.
Yeah.
Where probably Flipkart and Amazon is serving all the pin codes, but they also want to go to those markets and serve those. And that consumer, while we have 65 crore smartphone users, while data usage is high, they still want to have a touch and feel of the device.
Yeah.
It's a hard-earned money, right, for everyone. But they want to see the phone and compare, and all that thing happens. So that's why we see offline not losing momentum. We always said that you can't have a market where, in market like India, can't have 60% online share. It won't happen.
No, that's because, referring to my discussions with a few brands, like Chroma is very okay with their positioning in tier 1 cities, for example, because it's a very relatable brand. But they say that in smaller towns, they are competing still with the mom and pop shops where they know कि मैं यहाँ से अपने बचपन से खरीदता आ रहा हूँ, kind of a feeling, right? So that's something Chroma wants to tackle in the offline
have
space.
Familiarity with the person who is running the shop.
Yeah, right? Yeah. You know them by name-to-name basis. They could be your neighbor. Similarly, Xiaomi, which was once upon a time just an online-only player, now has shops in malls. Similarly for OnePlus, right? They've entered the offline market this way. And you hit the nail on the head when you said it's a touch and feel thing that, and I can go and catch the shopkeeper's collar online. मैं कहाँ जाऊँगा? And you also said that you won't see the market shift to online very soon. But what would it take for a Flipkart and an Amazon to kind of convince the smaller towns and cities that you can buy from us even if there's price parity? We can give you delivery at home. You don't have to go out in traffic. Like the conveniences of online shopping. Do you see?
But they're already doing it. If you see Myntra and Nykaa and others.
And they'll change it also for you in a day's time
so
if it doesn't
they'll do
fit.
That. In electronics is a high ticket item.
Yeah.
One is customer needs to have confidence to buy stuff from online. And all these cases of sometimes wrong delivery, soap bar and everything coming in. So those don't do any service to the objective. I would say they have done well in the past. In a market like India, serving 50% of the consumer, even 45% of the consumers is not a mean. It's a big number. It's a big number. It's a big number. We're talking about 15 crore give and take phones in a year, half of them being sold by online, and these two players, Amazon, Flipkart, are about 80% or so. We are saying 40% of 15 crore. That's about 60 crore phones in a year. 6 crore phone in a year being sold by online is not a small thing. I would say it's. I mean, they would love to keep servicing all the pin codes and everything, but I would say offline will still remain very relevant in a market like India. We do not foresee them being 60%. No, I mean offline will be there.
Okay.
There are about 150,000 shops in India, which
Yeah.
at least selling one phone. And you can't. It's very difficult to fight those.
True. I mean, you have the difference of perspective where someone goes to the offline store and says, ki, iPhone chahiye ya Samsung chahiye, and the shopkeeper is your guide. Whereas online, people would come and kind of read a website like ours and be like, Achha, which one should
Correct.
I buy?
It also comes from our consumers. Man. I mean,
Yeah.
we do not have Walmarts and Costco's and Targets here, right?
Yeah.
Carrefour's here. We always had mom and pop stores, even for grocery, even for tail and sabun and everything. We always had that.
Yeah. DMart is now trying to make an impact
Right?
in
So,
that segment.
I mean,
Yeah.
but in DMart, you go once a month.
Yeah.
You need something, you don't go there. So, and in India, there's no telco
Yeah.
for devices. Right? A consumer doesn't walk into an Airtel or a Jio store to buy a phone. Largely, he doesn't do that.
Yeah.
That's not his first port of entry, right? So, that is why these multi-brand outlets will remain very, very important.
So, I mean, the only reason I would ever walk into an offline store was to see something that's new that one cannot touch and feel, which we've seen happen over the past few years, is the flip and fold form factor, right? And you guys have talked a little bit about it in your smartphone report. So, can you highlight how this segment has kind of changed? Has it moved? Is it something that's gaining traction, or is it still novelty?
No, it's doing well. It's started doing well. I mean, Samsung used to have a lion's share until about 2021. But now we are seeing players like Tecno, Motorola is doing well here with their Razr series. So I think the more important is the affordability drive. I mean, Flip was at about 80,000. That's about $1,000. Fold was double the price. So obviously very few. And Fold initial volume in the first 2-3 years because it was a new looking device.
Yeah.
Somebody has a Fold. It's a good signal to the society that I bought the latest and the greatest and I spent money.
It reminds me of the time when Shah Rukh Khan roamed around with a Nokia communicator, and that was cool.
Exactly, same thing. So it's a cool factor, right? Apart from productivity and other, it's a great device. But I think more important is this market is set to grow, and we believe some of these China-based brands will be instrumental in bringing this
OnePlus
market.
Open got fantastic
Absolute
reviews and a great performing device.
Yeah.
The Tecno launched their, at least in that year's launch, the cheapest fold at about 88,000 rupees, which is not cheap, but it was the lowest priced for that year's launch.
Correct.
So, I mean, moving away from the flip and fold form factors, when you talk about the chipset market as well, right? Because consumers are getting more tech savvy. They want to know Qualcomm versus MediaTek, what bang do I get for my buck? And this is very interesting is because your report also says that the share of MediaTek-based smartphone increased to 50%. That leaves 50% in the hands of Qualcomm, Apple, Samsung, and Uni SoC, right? These are the only other competitors. So it's literally like MediaTek is holding half the weight.
It is.
So can you talk about how you've seen this growth come about? What has MediaTek done differently? Any insights over
I
that?
think one of the things which has happened is MediaTek started talking to a lot of the brands and brought out the models in the market which increase the acceptability of the brand at the retail level as well. When you start getting volumes at a price point, then people do not have a problem with something which is under the hood.
Yeah.
And we saw that Qualcomm, the prices were increasing. Their chipsets, I mean, new generation chipsets, which are coming in.
So
But I think
$200 investment on the premium segment just to get the chip.
Correct. So MediaTek has been very aggressive in marketing and aggressive in bringing out some of the models with brands like Realme and Oppo and Vivo. I think
And now the Nothing Phone 2.
Nothing Phone 2 is so I think all those new models which came out in the past year or so has really helped MediaTek, and I think it's good for the industry, good for the consumer as well, because now we see anecdotally when we do field research, we see the acceptability of MediaTek. I mean, there's not a discussion now that this has MediaTek, which Qualcomm always used to be seen a little superior because Qualcomm also invested in the marketing like Intel Inside did.
Yeah.
Qualcomm also did with Snapdragon for a long time, for 3-4 years. But now I think with MediaTek series.
Yeah, I think MediaTek chose the other side of the spectrum for their marketing, which was very focused on what our chips can do better performance. This is our capabilities. So I think that worked for them. And also the fact that a lot of people may not know this, but your Alexa speaker, your Fire TV stick, a lot of smart TVs IoT, and now in the auto segment also, MediaTek is kind of really spreading its wings, and everybody's going AI. But I think that was a really cool demo at the MediaTek booth where you could do generative AI, image to text,
Saw
and
that.
text to video without using the internet. So in case anyone out here missed it, I'll just give you a brief explanation of what that was you could actually type saying, let's say, a gorilla eating a banana, and the image would be generated right there with AI. And that was all happening on chip, on device right there, no connectivity to the internet. So everybody that we've also spoken about in the past about what AI will do, it's going to be a lot of fun to get started with. But I guess we'll see what happens with this in the future.
One important thing about MediaTek is they also entered and start being aggressive at the right time when the 5G devices started coming in.
Yes.
Market needed a competition for Qualcomm at that time.
Yeah.
And I think about 1.5, 2 years back, they really, took the market by storm. And we see
I still remember it was all about great affordable devices for gaming. That was one, their Hyper Engine or whatever. They had partnered with like the Vivos for the cameras and high-end performance. So I think they really got their wheels rolling in various. And the product was good. The product spoke for itself as well.
I mean, market has to, you have to give a great product to the market, right? Otherwise, feedback comes in and, market doesn't accept
the same Intel AMD fight that happened.
Same thing.
Yeah. Speaking of Intel and AMD, we're going to switch gears into our second topic, which is the laptop and PC market. While IDC launched its report about the laptop and PC market, we also have our survey, the Laptop Buyer Insight survey, which is also live. And I'm going to talk about the first thing where we have common data is, according to IDC, these are the top 5 players in the Indian market by share: HP, Dell, Lenovo, Acer, Asus. In our survey, when we asked people what brand of laptops do they currently own, we also saw it as HP, Dell, Lenovo, Acer, Asus. So clearly we're tapping a very similar TG about this. Just if you could quickly highlight how you see the position of these 5 brands and what's been happening, who has the larger market share, where's the competition, what categories are favoring these brands?
See, in the consumer piece, market is not, before pandemic, there was a problem of generating demand for these, PC brands. Within pandemic, all those peak years, they had a problem of meeting demand, right?
And chip shortage happened then.
Chip shortage happened and the meeting demand. They could not produce enough for the market, right? Everybody understood that they need a bigger device which is more capable than a phone.
Yeah.
And PC certainly is. India is not a multi-device market, but PC has a very different kind of use case also.
Yeah.
And we think that there is, if you speak to consumers now, something about the PC as a device, the perception has changed in the past 2-3 years. It's an important device. While people dusted off their old PCs and took them out in March 2020, when the lockdown happened, they suddenly realized that it's not good enough.
Yeah.
Because they were comparing with the phone which they're using. It's bulky, it's heavy, it's slow, the fans keep running, it heats up, so on and so forth. And that's why the demand started coming in. Now we are seeing demand is tapering.
Yeah.
Both enterprise and this. Enterprise is a very separate animal.
Just to quote your numbers, the Indian PC market declined by 6.6% year on year. So I'm guessing, again, longevity use of the devices that people own.
Yeah, it certainly did. Because people bought devices in 2020, 21, 22, right? So people dust off the old devices, use for 6 months, and they realized that this is not usable. So they kept on buying. While it's still more than 2020, before 2020, India is one of the few markets where the consumer volumes are still more than what we were doing in 2018 and 19. But it's tapering. Now, that doesn't mean that one is the refresh cycle is coming in. People who bought in 2020, 21, 2024, 25 is a refresh cycle. So possibly by this year end, we will see certain spurt of growth. Maybe. And second important one is AI PCs. Rest of the brands is HP, Dell, Lenovo, Asus, Ace. We call it DHL and AAA, right? Apple is also part. So DHL, Dell, HP, Lenovo, not in any order, but Acer, Asus, and Apple. These 5, and then you have Realme's and Infinix and others, which have small share. They were little late to the market, late to the join the bandwagon. But these are the 5 or 6 brands which do well. Apple has certainly, I believe, your survey should also show Apple has certainly the highest loyalty. Like all products they have. for this, I mean, it's very difficult to get out of the Apple ecosystem walled garden.
Yeah. I mean, they don't joke when they say once you go Mac, there's no going back. But having said that, I think what Intel is doing with its partners, AMD is doing with its partners in terms of bringing feature parity or bringing ecosystem parity with having an Android phone, you can do things what you can do with an iPhone and a Mac now you can do with an Android and a Windows machine.
I have some thoughts on that. I mean, no, industry certainly needs something around that,
Yes.
right? So, noble intentions by Samsung with their Galaxy series.
Yeah.
But Samsung is too small a player in PC market in India at least.
Yeah.
But I would love to see a device which is Windows and works seamlessly with my Android phone.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was having this
Just like
interesting...
a Mac and a MacBook and other do.
Yeah, I was having this interesting conversation with my colleague because we got the new Intel Ultra chip laptops now that they've started launching in our office for reviews. We have the Galaxy S24 and the likes, the parity of the flagship phones. Now, a very simple example is if I get a link on my phone on WhatsApp and I don't have WhatsApp open, I can press copy on my iPhone and I can press paste on a browser in a Mac, and that works. Now, something that's seamless is possible with Android and iOS on a Windows machine as well. So they've kind of caught up. So those level of communication parity, right? If you have a Samsung phone and a Samsung laptop, you can answer your calls on your Samsung laptop as well. Something which was kind of an Apple thing.
Yeah.
So it's going to be really interesting to see how these brands bring that kind of marketing communication to kind of take a share of the Apple audience. Because having used a Mac and having used, let's say, a Dell XPS, which is Dell's flagship, I don't see that performance difference anymore for day-to-day use, but let's see how they communicate that to the brands.
And I think Apple has made a lot of headroom for their success in the past few years with their own silicon on M1, M2, M3, all three. And now we have seen last week M3 launches. Just to round up the discussion, one of the important pieces is AI PCs. Now it's much talked about. Possibly consumers are waiting with a bated breath for that. Maybe the lives will change for most of the consumers. We have already started seeing snippets of it.
Yeah.
We can download Copilot and Gemini on our phones.
Yeah.
And it's doing wonderful job. We can have the preview on Windows 11 for the Copilot as well. But I think those are some of the things which will possibly give a kickstart much needed to the consumer refresh.
Yeah.
Because those machines will be different than what people have bought in 2021-22. So possibly that refresh will come in, and that's why we see maybe this year end, and certainly 2025 will be an interesting year for consumer PC market. You will see a lot of happenings around
I'm actually looking forward to a laptop buyer satisfaction survey, which we'll do at the end of this year to see how people are satisfied with what they've bought, and maybe next year how many people have jumped on the AI bandwagon. But just to highlight some points from our survey, and you can tell me if you feel the same, is how ownership share of brands has changed from 2023, right? So Dell, Lenovo, and Apple in that order have gained the maximum share from people who owned other brands in the past, whereas HP, Asus, and Xiaomi have lost the maximum share in that order. So do you also look at movement of audience from one brand to the other, or how would you perceive this?
Yeah, we don't do that. I mean, ours is a very simple that how a brand is doing in a quarter or a year. We've not seen HP being challenged, very frankly, not to that extent. Lenovo keeps on doing well in the market. Dell is a silent player in the market, but for consumer PC, it's a very strong player.
It's silent but deadly.
Yeah, it's very. Apple has a certain set of audience.
Yeah.
But lately, in the past 2-3 quarters, we've seen Asus and Acer really started doing well. Some of the commercial projects as well. But if you see Asus marketing, it's much more aggressive now in the past 2-3 quarters. So I think those are the few brands to look at. But otherwise, these are old incumbents from the industry.
Yeah.
Many brands have come and gone, and they learned it the hard way in the past 3-4 years. If you remember brand in Nextgo and some of the others which came in.
Avita came in and now it's vanished. Yeah.
It's very difficult to. I mean, these are old horses of the industry. It's difficult to get in the stable and be the same.
Yeah,
guys.
I mean, also I think service and after sales also has a lot to do with it.
It's sheer trust of because. While we might be buying a 80,000 rupees phone just on the go, I mean, I want to buy a new phone, I buy a 80,000 rupees phone, right?
Yeah.
For a laptop, even at 60,000, 50,000, the purchase involvement is much, much higher. You evaluate because there are more moving parts here. It's not as simple as that. RAM, ROM, and then variant of the GPU, CPU, what's available or not. So all of that. So these brands have been very. It's not like phone industry or certainly not like wearables.
Yeah, I mean, I have an interesting thought on this next point, which we highlighted, was how ownership share of brands may change in the future as to what people look to buying. And the one that's gaining the maximum traction are Asus, HP, and Dell. Look to, towards the future. This is the brands that people will kind of flock to. And it makes sense because if you look at Asus, which is poised to get the maximum share, is also because their entry level laptops around the 40,000, 50,000 rupee price point come with an OLED display. They will offer an H series processor, which for those of you that don't know is kind of like a slightly better performing processor than what the competition would like to offer. And I think the competition is also getting wind of this and kind of refreshing their portfolio. And hopefully we will see some numbers at your end as well change with some brands moving in different directions. And Asus, of course, has the strongest gaming portfolio, if one can say so, right, in terms of their catalog available. The last point that I wanted to actually highlight is brand loyalty, which I guess you hit the nail on the head when we started talking, was Apple has the highest brand loyalty today. But it's very closely followed by HP, Dell, and Asus. And I think HP is the biggest legacy player in India, so to speak, right? They had one of the first movers advantage, if one can say so.
And HP has been very strong in this space, both this and the printer space.
Yeah.
Those are the two businesses under HPI. They do very well here, and they've been strong in the industry. They get challenges obviously within a quarter or a year, but they have always been great with the products.
I think Acer is one who's like kind of going to swoop in a little bit because they've also gotten on the AI bandwagon with the OLED displays and aggressive price points.
We've seen both the players, Acer and Asus.
Yeah,
they're getting very aggressive now. Possibly some of the instructions from their headquarters to go out to the market like India, which is still one of the markets, as I said, above pre-pandemic levels. So, and our penetration of laptops is not great in India. We are still less than, I would hazard a guess, about not more than 15 crore laptops in India, out of a base of about 140. And this includes, by the way, enterprise users also. So all the companies and the cyber hubs and IT in Bangalore, or including put together, is not more than this. So it's not great. There is still
scope.
Everybody, all the brands, if you see the marketing message, they believe that everyone in the home should have a laptop.
Yeah.
Not one per household, one per member per household.
Yeah.
Now, that's probably a slightly far off dream in a market like India, not a multi-device market, but it still probably you can have a personal consumption laptop, and at least in the urban markets.
True. And I also think a lot of these brands are trying to build loyalty from now itself. Like I was speaking to Lenovo one day and they were telling us that if you want to buy a charger for your laptop and it's available, we have a system where it'll identify a store close to your home location and we'll figure out a way to deliver it to you in under a day. Dell will deliver the display of your laptop to your house and within 48 hours a technician will come home and fix it. So I think a lot of this kind of will help in the brand loyalty at a subconscious level, but we'll see the consequences of this long term. Final topic of discussion for today, like I said, is smart TVs. And based on when you guys are watching this, you can check out a link in the description. And if you're listening to it, you can head over to our YouTube channel and check out the video version of this. And the description, you will either find a link to participate in the survey or you will find a link to the results of the survey because, depends on when you are watching this. And smart TVs, like we've spoken in the past, is a very, very interesting category. And just, bird's eye view, what's your opinion on the smart TV market in India?
The smart TV market is doing well in the sense that after the pandemic, what we've seen is the larger screen TVs are in demand now. You still get about 32 inches and lower than that, which you see in some of the retail shops and some of the news channels running all throughout the day.
Yeah.
But second TV is a major trend which has started happening, and people are more aware of the technology now. And all credit to some of the China-based players who brought in, specifically Xiaomi, if I may.
Yeah.
They democratized the market like nobody else. They're still largest smart TV market. We have incumbents here also, Sony, LG, Samsung, Panasonic, right? So very strong incumbents, great product portfolio. But I think they were slightly complacent that time, and Xiaomi and then Realme and OnePlus, they really came and swooped in and they've done well. While Sony, LG, Samsung keep on doing well, but they really are trying to match the consumer expectations which have been shaped in the past 4 or 5 years by brands like Xiaomi. So people are asking for second screen now, people are asking about refresh rates and OLED and others now. And people are willing to. So larger screens we have seen doing well.
Like a brand like View has told me that they will not produce a TV smaller than 43 inches because that market's almost gone.
Yeah. So larger screen TVs are there. Obviously, we are not saying 65 inches because we don't have such big homes most
I mean,
of the time.
I went to LG's Innovation Gallery in their office in Noida, and they had a 97-inch LG G2 OLED TV, and I went and tried to hug it, and just for perspective, if my arms got to the frame, it was bigger than this. It was way bigger than this. Like 1.5 me's would hug it. So I'm waiting to see who goes out and buys a 97-inch TV.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I'm sure it is going into some
But it's fantastic.
experience galleries and everything else.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it's not for volume consumption. Volume consumption is still about 43, 49, 50, 55. These are the major share.
Now, you did speak about various technologies and people getting, familiar with them. We have OLED, QLED, Samsung, what do you say? LG will put it as QNED, and, all these brands will have their own. But we've gotten stuck at a 4K TV. Peak brightness will be better, image quality will be better year on year. But honestly, I have put a 2022 TV next to a 2023 TV, and unless you know which is which, the picture quality, even with, let's say, playing a very good Blu-ray of, let's say, Tenet, which, is a Christopher Nolan, very beautiful movie, or even Oppenheimer, or anything like that, you're okay with something that was launched past year, right? So do you think, personal opinion, that we've hit a kind of a ceiling for some time because 8K hasn't taken on so much, larger screen size haven't taken on, speakers and TVs have become better because of technology, but people will still buy a sound bar. That category was born because of slim TVs. So do you think we've hit a ceiling for TV technology, or brands have something up their sleeves?
So I would not say, we've hit a ceiling from a technology point of view. But it's always interesting to see that at what point does a consumer stop caring?
Yeah.
Right, 108 megapixel camera in the phone, 5000 mAh battery, you give me a faster charging, that was good enough for the consumer.
Yeah.
One of the largest selling phones in the world is a 60 hertz refresh rate. We keep on saying about 120 hertz refresh rate, right? So I think that's where the dichotomy of what you can do and you should do comes in, right? So I would not say technologically, there will be a lot thinner TV, transparent TVs, all the stuff will happen, right? A TV just on the wall which lights up only when you turn it on, otherwise it's just a screen or, the painting or whatever, right? So just like frame we had. But from a consumer point of view, it's very difficult to want to decipher all these things, and that's where reviews and everything comes in. And secondly, to that, it's good enough for me? I mean, if you see, do we have so many HD channels or subscribers of HD channels that people will not?
Exactly.
It's still SD, it's still grainy.
Yeah.
Blacks are blacks, that's good enough. It should not be a bad watching experience for me.
Yeah.
So I think, and that is why we'll never see a TV at 1 lakh doing so many volumes.
Yeah.
I mean,
We'll wait for IDC's next report to tell us
it's a
what
high
it is.
involvement category, but otherwise, people, I mean, as Indians, we calculate value in 3 seconds, right?
Yeah.
Is it good enough for me or not at this price point? So I don't think, that's where the brands need to come in. They say that, what are the compromises I need to make to make these features available but not increase the price point?
Yeah, true.
That's like, so I think those kind of things will happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think LG is a great example because they have the A, B, C, and G series in their OLED. The A is the entry level, the cheapest model, doesn't have 120 hertz, doesn't have the fancy HDMI ports, but just gives you a great OLED experience. The B is kind of the middleman, a little bit of their entry level stuff, a little bit of the new HDMI features, blah, blah, blah. C series kind of, paints the wall red, like this is our flagship, you should buy. And G is like, I have more money than you, I'm going to put it like a frame on my wall. So
Which is
great.
The evidence of this is that the large format retail does well for TVs.
Yeah.
But they have HD engines and beautiful macaws and sparrows and, Iceland.
Tea falling in slow
landscapes
motion.
coming in. You tell them to put Tara Sky or something, then you will realize that half the TV, from a consumer's point of view, they can't see the difference.
Absolutely, Navkendar. Thank you so much for joining us for our first episode. We look forward to doing one more with you. For those of you that are listening on any of the podcast platforms, thank you so much for staying till the end, and do subscribe if you enjoyed what we spoke about. For those of you watching on YouTube, I hope you had a great time listening and took some insights away. We would love to hear from all of you. You can leave us a comment in the comment box below on YouTube, and we will do our best to actually go through that and see if we can pick out some interesting insights or topics to discuss for our next episode. Your feedback is always valuable to us. We will catch you in another episode. It's goodbye for now.